you to give.
Mm.
That you look at your partner, you look at your wife. Now, the 20% that she's not, it is for you to just look at her and use your words to say, to create it, and just imagine it. That if your wife is impatient, instead of calling her out on impatience, tell her that she's actually a very patient person. You will be amazed how, before long,
She changes.
this is what
Transforms. She becomes.
she becomes. So this is what it means to wash her with words.
So what you're telling the men is that whatever it is you're observing in your wife that you hate, it is probably because you've kept quiet. You've not washed her with the words.
And if you want to extricate yourself from that situation, if you're not giving words, someone else is giving these words, and that is what is creating the situation. That maybe it is the peer influence, or maybe it is the crap media that we have, and this toxic information that people end up consuming, and that is what is changing the psychology of your partner. That the girl who used not to shout, the girl who used not to ignore, is now ignoring you, because maybe on Twitter they are saying men should be treated like that, and you're not doing anything to change. But you see, women, God has told us they will want to dominate, they want to control, but God has created a system, or not a system, but
a situation
where the man must lead. You get? So as solid jammers, we have to lead. And one of the characteristics or the qualities of a great leader is that they are able to communicate, that they are able to speak, create a vision that compels and motivates the most inept people to jump mountains and do impossible things. This is what happens when a man looks at his woman and deliberately, intentionally sees the greatness in her and calls it out. Because, if you go home and treat your wife like a queen, of course you will be a king. You get? So the problem is that men, we are running around waiting to be enthroned and crowned. Dude, you are a king.
Be a king.
Be a king.
Yeah.
And speaking of being...
And by the way, being a king, when you are a king, have you ever seen a king being beaten down with issues of self-esteem, as in doesn't know he's a king? A king is a king.
If you have to...
It doesn't matter whether you bow to him or not, he is a king.
If you have to say that you are a king,
if you have to announce that, hey,
then you're not a king.
Guess what? I'm a king.
If you remember, I don't know if you watched Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So there was an episode there when this family, the Lannister family, this boy had been enthroned, and Tyrell, what's it called? Tyrell? The dwarf and his father were talking, and the man had just sent the king to bed. Yeah? And the dwarf told his father, but you know that is the king of Westeros. And this is what the father told him, that you will be a fool if you think that the head wearing the crown is the one with the power. Always. Do you understand that? It means that some people are men in name only. And therefore they have to go around announcing their manhood and swinging it around in people's faces because of the ineptitude and the insecurities deep down within, that they cannot bring out the blossom of a good woman.
We can go home.
So this is what I'm telling you, that if you are a king, if you know you are a king, you will make a queen.
As in, it's an automatic transaction.
Exactly. So that is why, if you look at the progression we're saying, it started with submit one to another out of reverence for Christ. And then we come to wives, submit to your husbands. like Sarah did. And then come to the man who actually has the real part. The reason he's brought last is because it begins and falls on it. It says, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church and gave himself, which means that in the love of a man for his spouse, there has to be a certain level of sacrifice, and that is the hard part, the dying to self.
The dying to self is the thing.
It is the hard part.
The intentionality and the discipline
To choose others over yourself. That is real leadership. And men are leaders. So
if a guy has decided to choose others over him, he doesn't even feel less of a man if he's not called a king. He doesn't even demand to be king. He's now a servant.
His grace and his glory is revealed in the greatness and the grace of those people that when my wife turns up looking great, being confident, being happy, it comes back to me.
My goodness. So all along, men who are looking for this accolade to be called my Lord and my King,
they have refused to make their women
have missed
queen.
the thing big time.
Yes.
It is not a demand.
Remember, honor is a gift.
So what we can say at the end of the day, honor is a gift. What we can say at the end of the day is this, that the idea of being called my Lord, the idea of being called a king, it is a byproduct
of grace.
Of grace, and also it is an automatic.
And speaking of grace,
something
why do you think that kings are called
your grace?
But guess what? That is the hardest thing for men to give their wives today. And we wonder why women, even in church, are saying to hell with submission. Because they are loading them with burdens. And demands, but they are not giving grace.
So let us speak to the Sode Jama even as we start winding down this episode. We've learned quite a bit today. There is a place, the ideals and so on and so forth. But we've learned, on my part I've learned, this thing of being called king, Lord and so on and so forth is not something that I should expect on day one. Should not even expect it. It is not even, what I'm learning is that it is my responsibility to raise the stakes and create a kingly environment around me. And therefore automatically I can be addressed as Lord and so on. But I'm also learning it's not an issue of authority and position. I'm learning it's an issue about submission, number one, and then service, number two.
And you see how simple it is?
Yeah.
That's why it's hard.
Simple things are not easy.
Because we want to take care of number one. So
selfishness.
We flip the script. If we want to see things change, we have to flip the script and go back to the basics.
So it's like reverse call. When I was young, we used to do reverse calls. I don't know if you remember those, when there were only landlines. You call the post office, head office, and you say, I want to send a reverse call to my father. And if he accepts, then he's the one who is charged.
Oh, yes. I've seen it in movies.
Reverse call. Those guys in prison, they normally do that a lot. The point we are making here is this. To be king, or to be addressed as your grace, give grace.
Be gracious.
Serve. Be gracious. Be kingly to others. A king takes care of his subjects. A king protects his subjects, right? A king provides fully for his subjects, and therefore he's able to be called a king. A king leads. One of the things that you've emphasized a lot today is leadership.
Yes.
So for a solid Jama, this idea of submission all over the place, if we were to rank them, if we were to organize, if we were to name these things, I'll start going and then maybe you can add. Number one, the path through you becoming a king in your kingdom. Number one is submission. Number two is sacrifice.
True.
Which leads to number three, service. I don't know what number number 4 will be
Death to self.
death to self. Selflessness. Now we're using the SS. So selflessness is there.
And then also give sex, man. You see, men be there wanting the women to look for them and give them sex.
Yeah.
And you find that is the psychology of a man. He wants the woman to run at him with lingerie, like Garth was saying,
like Jimmy Garth was telling us.
The wife turns up in a nightie, and then the maid turns up in a see-through, and then the guy is going to get a side door who waits for him at that door with, in lingerie. But if you know anything about English, the reason why the word mistress is called mistress is because of what we just said. Women are the same, just different days. You are going to get stress from the wrong place, misplaced stress. That is a mistress. But if you understand that your woman has the needs that you have, selflessness will put you to a place where you are giving your wife sex.
So let's go back to Jimmy Garth, even as we're winding up. You come back home and you expected your wife to welcome you. She hasn't. She doesn't. You are living from the angle of expectation, which is childish. A king or a solid Jama does the opposite. What does he do?
He turns up,
goes to the wife,
gives her a hug, says, "How was your day?"
Ministers to her.
Takes off his own tie if she's not going to help him. And then sees how sexy she is and reminds her how hot she is.
And just give
romances her. Not just attacks her. No. Romances her. So some men are just, riding around like terrorizing their wives. They switch off the light, they come like bazookas. No. Romance your wife. But that means you have to see her.
She has to feel, what they normally say in the courts of law, justice and so on. They normally say justice needs to be seen to be done and also needs to be done. She has to feel all those things you're talking about. You're not doing a routine. All right.
So she'll respond. She'll respond that even if she was tired, it is now these things that you do that will unwind her. It sounds cliche.
So the key all along is the man.
Yeah.
If you wanted to be king, you're the king.
You're the king. I'll take that to the bank and stop wasting people's time. And I want to say there's nothing wrong with being a good man if this is what a good man is supposed to do. And I want to talk to married people. We do not have options. I will be politically wrong. And it's okay. But I'm saying this. One of the reasons why marriages break up so easily is because people get into marriages, 1, ill-advisedly, and then 2, selfishly, and then 3, they get into marriages but with what I'd call hedged bets. Like they are not going into it 100%.
Full blast.
They feel like I can always step out.
There's an option.
For as long as there are options, then one day it will be open for you to exercise that option. But solid Jamas are intentional and they're disciplined. And we call for commitment. And commitment does not always feel nice. But anyone who has been in a committed relationship will show you the fruits down the road in a safe, secure family, in a peaceful marriage, because for every option that you seem to give yourself, there will be a price to pay. And personally, I value my relationship with my wife, and I keep asking God to help me not to take away anything from its resources in the name of exercising options. And this is the growth journey we have to take. And when you look at the marriage vows